Okay. All right. And then Dan.
Terry Sheen and my wife Diana Sheen.
Diana just stepped out momentarily. Okay, going to Zoom. That's everybody in the room here. Going to Zoom. Carol Fall.
Carol Fall, Trinity County Collaborative, North Lake kind of area.
Great, thanks, Carol. Bob.
Trinity County Collaborative. We wrote community forest, all sorts of stuff.
Great, thanks, Bob. Arnold.
Here, collaborative group member, welcome.
Right, thanks, Arnold. Ren Winter.
Hello, Ren Winter with Trinity River Lumber and Corral Creek Timber.
Great, thanks, Ren. Kristen Lark.
Good morning, Kristen Lark, Mad River Ranger District Ranger. See if I have everything working. Great, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks, Kristen. Let's see, on to Jennifer Mata.
Good morning, Jennifer Mata, Field Manager, Reading BLM.
Awesome, thank you, Jennifer. Chris Reisinger.
Chris Reisinger, NRCS, Conservation Planner.
Thanks, Chris. Dylan Kirkley.
Good morning, everyone. Dylan Kirkley with Trinity County RCD.
Thanks, Dylan. Jerry Cousins.
Good morning, everybody. Jerry Cousins, Collaborative member.
Thank you, Jerry. Ben Sundall.
There we go. Got the audio working. So good morning, Ben Sundall, Acting District Ranger, South Fork Management Unit, Trinity River Management Unit, Chest Trinity National Forest.
Great. Thanks, Ben. Joseph and Susan Bauer.
We're here.
Hello.
Hello.
Susan Bauer.
Thanks, Joseph. Thanks, Susan. David Colbeck.
Good morning, everybody. David Colbeck, Trinity County Natural Resources.
Thank you, David. Terry Jones.
Good morning, Trinity County friends. I am the acting Lassen National Forest Supervisor, and today I'm an interested observer.
Great, thanks, Tara. Good to see you. Let's see, Sarah Akeridge.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Sarah Akeridge, District Ranger for the National Recreation Area. Good to see everyone today.
Thanks for joining us, Sarah. Chris Cole.
Hey, morning, everybody. I'm Chris Cole, the District Conservationist for Natural Resource Conservation Service for Trinity County.
Excellent. Thanks, Chris. Jack Leinhard.
Jack Leinhard, Watershed Center Recreation Program Manager.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us, Jack. Let's see. Keith Greenwood.
Keith Greenwood, Sierra Pacific Industries, Weaverville.
Awesome. Thanks, Keith. Fred Perrin. We got video, but not audio. You're still muted, Fred.
They all jump in, Kelly, while he's still on mute, trying to figure out his audio. Fred Perrin is the new Acting Deputy District Ranger for the Trinity River and South Fork Management Units, Chest Trinity National Forest. Acting Deputy District Ranger.
Welcome. Well, welcome, Fred. Thank you. And thanks for the update there, Ben. Deputy. Okay. Let's see, where are we at? Larry Glass.
Hey, Larry Glass, SAFE and OG Collaborative member.
Oh, gee. Thanks, Larry. No, it's keeping with you. We got him.
Waiting.
Yep. Marcus Nova. Yeah, we did.
I'm not sure if you guys can hear me. Do you got me loud and clear?
Yes, we do.
Oh, awesome. Hey, it's Marcus Nova. I'm representing here kind of for two parts, and we can talk about this a little later in the meeting, but Wildfire Crisis Strategy Team, we are kind of mixing things up with our organization, and so we'll talk about that maybe if there's a time. And but right now I'm now housed under the Shasta Trinity National Forest Partnership and Implementation Lead is I think the title they're giving me now. So glad to be attending and visiting with you all today.
Excellent. Thank you, Marcus. That was a mouthful.
Yes, it was.
Great. Thank you. Xander Winter.
Morning, I'm Xander. I am a forester with the Watershed Center.
And with that, I'm going back through, and I believe that is everyone. Did I miss anyone?
Yeah.
No, we got you at the beginning.
Oh, did you?
You were
All right.
you were.
He covered for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's it. So
All right.
I'll hand things over to Jim.
Okay, well, good morning. Once again, good to see everyone join us this morning. We're going to start off with our agenda check. So hopefully you've had a chance to look over our agenda, and if you have any comments or requests for changes, now is your opportunity to let us know. Anybody?
Yep, Jim, this is Bob.
Yeah, Bob, go ahead.
The first item, the Board of Supervisors letter, is that an action item?
No, I think this was just a report item, Bob, just to keep everybody up to speed on kind of where that progress is at. Maybe most are already aware, but yeah, just a follow-up item from the previous meeting and discussion we had.
Thanks.
Anybody else on our agenda? Okay, not seeing any. We will move on to collective memory minutes. So hopefully you saw in Kelly's email with the agenda and minutes, there was an attempt to be responsive to many of your requests here in past meetings to summarize, to boil down the 35 plus page document to something that's a little more user friendly. So that attempt was made by Marla, and we want to thank Marla for her time and effort. So she did express some interest in feedback. I think we got it down to 6 pages. So anyways, any comments on minutes? Any comments on our summary? Would be welcomed.
Thank you, and thank you for the short form minutes.
Cool.
Marla is the greatest.
She is. She's a rock star. Yep.
And whoever told her to do it is the greatest.
Yeah. Kelly gets that credit.
It's all her.
Yep. All right. Any other comments on minutes? Not seeing any. Public input. Don't believe we have any general public with us today. Okay, so yeah, follow-up items from previous meetings. So as Bob alluded to, our first item up there is just an informational item just to keep people up to speed. I think I'll turn this one over to Kelly. I think he's pretty familiar with where we're at on that letter.
Yep, so the letter was submitted prior to the last meeting. It got onto the October 1st meeting of the Board of Supervisors, and it was passed unanimously by the board and signed by Board Chair Rick Lutweiler, so it should have been on its way to Bill Sack's office.
Okay. So there's your update. Any follow-up on that or questions? Not seeing any. Moving on here, as you recall, at our last meeting, there was a fairly in-depth discussion, Q&A regarding the, I believe, just the Shasta Trinity kind of management review that occurred in the summer. And there was some requests that maybe Ben would look into whether or not the 15 pages of recommendations was a public document, and whether or not that could be shared with the members of the collaborative and the public at large. So I see Ben kind of shaking his head, acknowledging that discussion. Ben, do you have any words of wisdom for us this morning?
Yep, quick update on that. So the Shasta Tree National Forest General Management Review that was hosted by the regional office. Shasta Tree National Forest Supervisor Rachel Berkey will be sending out a report to all the external participants early next week. So Kelly, when you get that email from Rachel early next week, you'll be able to share those contents with the collaborative board members.
Will do.
That is my update.
All right, thanks, Ben. Any questions for Ben on that one? I do see a hand from Carol. Carol?
Yeah, so I did read the minutes, even though I wasn't here at the last meeting. And so, Ben, do you think, I'm just curious, so it sounded like the Forest Service was pleased that all the partners were, positive about the interaction, which is great, happy, happy place. But do you have an idea whether the concerns were captured? Because there were a lot of concerns mentioned in my group, and I wasn't sure if that was going to be part of the internal kind of response or what.
So yeah, the GMR was kind of a twofold process. There was the partners, the externals that provided a lot of input to the regional office staff. And then a lot of input from agency employees into that report. So the GMR is kind of underneath the umbrella of confidentiality, specifically on the Forest Service side of things. So Rachel will be sending out a report to Kelly and the partners early next week for you guys all to digest that report and see what the comments were. Some of the issues that have been raised by some of the participants of that GMR. So you should get a good breadth of knowledge from that report that Rachel sends out early next week that Kelly will share with the group.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I realized that employee comments would be, confidential, but I was interested in the responses, how the Forest Service was going to try to fix or respond to some of the external partners. So hopefully that would be in that report. Sounds like. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So I haven't seen what the email will look like. So I myself would be curious, but I know part of the GMR process was a list of recommendations the forest needs to tackle over the next few months to 6 months to a year. So we have some action items as a forest. So you should see some of that, whether it's internally and externally, occurring over the next few months as we start checking off those boxes, so to speak, as we start to address some of the things that came up within that GMR report.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Kelly.
If there's nothing more on that.
Anything else on that management review? And
Jerry had his hand up for a moment.
I did, but my question was answered. I didn't get it first time around if Rachel's email was going to Kelly and then to be distributed, but then I heard it's going to the partners that were involved in that.
Yeah, Jerry, you'll get it from Kelly. Kelly will get it as,
Oh,
yep, Kelly will be able to share it with the collaborative group.
Yes.
oh, okay. So it goes to Kelly first and then Kelly will distribute it. Is that right?
Affirmative.
Okay.
Great. Good. Yeah, one little go back, Keith Greenwood put into the chat, talking about the long and the short version of the collective memory, and making sure that both versions go out. That will be the case. We're not gonna just do summaries. It'll be the transcription and the summary going forward.
Okay. Up next, so as you may recall, those of you that were at the last meeting and those that have had a chance to read through the minutes, there was a fairly robust discussion, I think, initiated by Larry Glass as it pertains to how the collaborative has historically gone about supporting, endorsing, approving of projects. I think principally focused on, Forest Service projects that they're bringing forward and seeking input and collaboration on. So again, there was a lot of members that chimed in on that question relative to bylaws, and so we just wanted to kind of circle back on this one as a follow-up item. It was unclear to Kelly and I in terms of kind of what expectations were. So I guess the question from your facilitation team is, was that a discussion that was sufficient and satisfactory relative to everyone's understanding of the collaborative process for project approval, endorsement, support, or was there further action and or discussion expected to solidify what that process is? So I see Carol's hand. There we go.
Two things. One is I have my original binder that you guys handed out, falling apart. That has the charter, so I think a lot of the voting practices and stuff were outlined in the charter, that it has to be an 80% majority and all that kind of stuff to reach consensus. So yeah, anyway, we have all that stuff if people have questions about that. I don't think we've ever changed or updated the charter except for the procedure to kick members out. We did update that at one point.
Okay.
And so anyway, the other thing
I was just going to ask Carol, do you think it would be of value to get those bylaws back out to everyone? Does everyone have them? Would it be beneficial to just make sure everyone's got them?
yeah, I can certainly send them to you to send out, if you guys want to. Yeah, it'd be good to revisit them because that was 2013-14, so it's been 10 years that since we wrote those, and Arnold wrote most of them.
Correct.
I just want to
Anything else, Carol? We got Larry's got his hand up.
Okay, just one brief point. So when you talked about the program of work in the minutes, I didn't see an update on that, but I just wanted to mention the reason we used to do the program of work meeting in February was because our understanding was that the Forest Service started finalizing their program of work for the following fiscal year in May. So we wanted to be able to provide input, before they really started cranking down on what the program of work was. So that's why we used to have that meeting in February.
You're good. Thank you, Carol. Larry.
Yeah, did your review of the bylaws come up with anything that we haven't been following? Because it seems to me like we've been staying pretty close to that.
Yeah, Larry, I think that's where maybe Kelly and I, if there was an expectation that we, kind of went through and reviewed the minutes to give some validation, we fell short. We did not do that. So if there is an expectation that you'd like us to kind of go through those bylaws fairly closely and just maybe kind of report back to the collaborative as a whole, whether we believe we're on track consistent with those bylaws, or whether or not there's been some deviation. But yeah, we did not do that.
If Carol's got them and she's going to share them, then you should share them with everybody in the group.
Oh, no
and
question.
Then everybody can refresh their memory, or those that are newer can look back at what we decided a long time ago, and
Correct.
we can go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. Yeah, that's definitely what we're going to do. We'll once we get them from Carol, we'll ship them out to everyone, and everyone will have a chance to, just kind of refresh. 10 years is a long time, so I suspect we're not all dialed in terms of what those procedures and bylaws lay out for us.
I have dug up the actual bylaws, so I have an electronic version, but I would need to verify whether or not the version that I have actually includes that revision that Carol had mentioned about the removal of members. So it would be useful, Carol, I guess, if you have an electronic version to just to share that with me. If it includes that piece, and then I can just make sure that I can confirm that we have the most recent version, and then I can distribute that out.
Okay, Arnold.
That's all. I'm fine with everything that's been said. I wanted to remind us that one of the reasons we were talking about it was to bring agency people up to speed, because some had been talking to a group or a subcommittee or members on field trips and thought that was enough ammunition to say, here's how the collaborative feels, and that's not how we operate. And so it might be good, any agency people that need to or want to report how the collaborative feels need to review the document also.
Very good. Good suggestion, Arnold. We will ensure that all agency members also are included in the email that will share the bylaws.
Yeah, I don't know if, certainly I don't think every agency person that's, as opposed to collaborative member, needs to memorize every bit of it, but certainly the people with supervisory responsibilities, or the people that want to talk about how the collaborative feels, need to know what the bylaws say.
So Ren has posted a link to the charter in chat, and that charter is on the RCD website under the collaborative documents. So I'll look to see if that matches the later revisions about removing members.
Very good. Appreciate that, Ren.
Thanks, Carol. Thank you, Ren.
Yeah. All right. Any other discussion on this topic?
Jerry here, just got one more. Well, I don't think people have to memorize it, but I think there's so many new folks sitting at the table that just to read and kind of understanding the structure would be very beneficial.
All right. Thank you, Jerry. Any other comments on this topic here before we move on? Okay. Very good. Not seeing any. We're going to move on here. So up next, again, last meeting, there was some discussion about the TPUD's project proposal, power line clearing project, and expectations that a public document was forthcoming for comment and, you know, feedback. I believe the date that was shared was November 8th. I did call Paul and check in with him here recently, and he confirmed that that date has now been postponed and no new date has been established. However, his best guesstimate is February for the new timeline for a public document to be shared. So that's kind of the update on that one. Anybody have any questions, comments on that? Okay. And then I believe Kelly addressed this other one. As you know, we've been kind of discussing the possibilities of a new venue to maybe encourage a little more in-person meetings in the future. Those of you that are able to do that. So we're continuing to work on that, but I believe Kelly addressed that in the email recently, indicating that, yeah, that's an ongoing effort, and we're hopeful that maybe the Trinity County Library facility may address that need for us. Anything else, Kelly, on that one?
No, the only, I guess the thing that I would wonder about is our next scheduled meeting would be January 17th, and being that it's the deepest, darkest part of the winter time, is that something that we want to attempt to do as a you know, potential, you know, hybridized meeting with, you know, more potential for in-person connections, or should we wait till spring? And that's a question, I guess, to the group.
Anybody
I
have any
like
feedback on that?
in-person meetings.
Okay, any other comments on that?
Okay.
Okay, well, I'll see what I can do about, I guess, making that happen for January then. And if we can make it, we can make it.
Yep. Okay. Moving on. So we've had a fair amount of field trips, field tours here over the last month or so. So we've got several here. The Junction City, the Big Ranch, and the Hayfork pilot projects. So those of you that were able to attend and participate in those field tours, any thoughts, comments that you'd like to share with the group at large, and particularly for those members who were unable to participate? Maybe let's start with Junction City. Any specific comments on that particular tour? Not seeing any. Let's move on to Big Ranch. Any comments on Big Ranch? Pretty quiet group this morning. Go ahead, Arnold.
Arnold will talk.
Very good, Arnold.
Both Junction City. What? Both Junction City and Big Ranch were good. I thank the Forest Service for pointing stuff out and showing stuff and asking for stuff. Both of them had a lot of sort of challenging sites and challenging situations, and I think the Forest Service, you know, really tried to draw out the opinions or advice of the collaborative or of anyone else. I don't think I felt like they didn't get the Forest Service reps didn't get in what I could call a comprehensive, solid advice, and so I think it's up to it. It remains open. I think one problem was it wasn't really clear to me anyway that whether the to what extent the Forest Service, the planning process was still open to and accessible to new ideas. And that may come up more in when we discuss the landscape team transition, whatever you call it, which I hope we will. But I think it's still on the table. So the attempt was good, and it needs more from all of us, I think. This concludes my remark.
Thank you very much, Arnold. Jerry.
I agree with Arnold that the field trips were great, especially on the Junction City one, the discussion of how to deal with just incredibly steep country full of burned trees and how does those get cleared to make it more fire safe. And then, yes, ongoing discussion about what the Forest Service is really asking from the collaborative to expand their consideration for more landscape projects. And I too hope that that conversation will happen this meeting or the next meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, Jerry. So I don't see any others. Just wanted to give opportunity here. Ben, maybe sounded like Arnold was definitely directing maybe a question in your direction. Would you want to respond to Arnold's inquiry there?
About the WCS landscape team transition?
Yeah, that and just kind of what expectations you have of the collaborative relative to input and feedback, that sort of thing.
So I'll save the transition for during our report out, and I'll have Marcus come on too, since it's near and dear to his heart as well. So we'll save that discussion here for a little bit. But as for like Big Ranch and other large landscape projects on the west side of the Shasta National Forest, working closely with the collaborative group here and sharing all ideas and options as we start the early planning process for these large landscape projects. Yes, we value all input and do to the best of our ability based on our parameters. Yeah, we're attached to the hip, and by no means are we dismissing any input and your values as a group. So as we start moving through Big Ranch, we will continue to have additional field trips and talking points with this group on how that project looks. So we're early, so it was great to get out there with on the field trip, and we've had a couple of field trips to Big Ranch, and there'll be more after the winter months here. So just really appreciate everybody's input on those field trips. It helps our specialists.
All right, thank you, Ben. Jerry.
Just to follow up on that, I really appreciate the early outs on these projects. Totally the opposite of what used to happen. So that's great.
Very good. Okay, moving on here to Hay Fork pilot projects. Any feedback, comments on that tour? Larry.
Yes, I, as one of the people that pushed for the pilot project in the first place at the very beginning of the collaborative, I would have to say my review of what I saw in the field was great disappointment. It no longer bears much resemblance to what we originally came forward with and designed as a project. And I would blame that on having passed through so many district ranger hands and so many change of regimes that it just seems like there's no institutional memory there of what we originally proposed. There's yeah, so anyways, when we went out into the field, I did not recognize that as the pilot project that we had proposed.
Thank you, Larry. Any other comments on pilot in particular?
I could try. I could try one. The pilot project sort of had two parts to it. And the first place we stopped in the first part was, I agree, it was not our project. It was a project, and it wasn't our project. The second part, was much closer to what we had in mind, or at least, still can be what we had in mind. So, I didn't feel the whole thing was a loss or a complete deviation. Just that, half. I don't know. I don't know the division between the two sides, but half of it was certainly not what anything we described, and half of it kind of was, or still may be.
All right, thank you, Arnold. Yes.
Dinah Sheen here. I remember that the U.S. Forest Service representative on that field trip was asked about just that. And that he sort of indicated that they might not do better, but get along with what the collaborative has more in mind.
For context, the first stop that we made on the pilot project units was exclusively service work. So it was just fuel, like roadside fuels reduction. There was no timber component to that particular piece. And I think part of the conversation had to do with the integration of service work with the main focus being on actual, timber production. And I think that is partly what threw some of us off. We were expecting to see, more of a mark for the actual timber sale. We did end up going on our second primary stop that day at an area that had been marked up by the staff at the Watershed Research and Training Center. And I believe that was kind of what most of the members were expecting to see at that point. And then there was another stop, third stop on pilot, that sort of highlighted some of the difficulties of actually logistically logging some of the areas of along the roadway closer to pay for proper. But I think part of the confusion was just the fact that there was, some service work, some fuels reduction work that was done, how it was done, the sort of haphazard nature of the way that the actual work, like the actual work had been completed, and some concerns with regard to that, because it had been done primarily by contractors under, as I understand it, WCS funding. And that piece certainly didn't sort of match up with what we were expecting to see. Jerry, did you have additional comments?
I agree with your review of that, Kelly. The first stop we made where it was service work, they stated no merchantable timber can come out, and the work was already done. It wasn't just marked, it had been worked, and it did not look anything like the concept of the pilot project. The second stop, as you said, was marked by the Watershed Center, probably, 18 months, 2 years ago was the marking. So there were more people who marked it maybe, or who directed the marking, had more immediate conversation about the pilot project with the collaborative group. And I think most people felt that, there's always a discussion about one tree or another tree, but in general, that seemed to meet the prescription.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Yeah, Tara's got her hand up. And Bob, we'll get to you next.
Sorry, I missed the field trip. So, when the area of the service contract work was done. That was funded through Joint Chiefs. That was Joint Chiefs funding that did that. It's limited to, it was only about 300 acres, as I recall. And then and it did not have a commercial component. But what I think I'm hearing you say, so you should have seen the trees were not just, what I've heard from the group in the past is, hey, don't just cut those trees and leave them in the woods. So we actually had a cut, skid and deck contract. I haven't been out there, so I'm just getting your feedback. And the parts that you didn't like about it were, it was too thick. What, just, could you give me the Cliff Notes version of what didn't match your expectations so we can make adjustments?
Yeah, I can make a comment to that effect. I think from my eye and from part of the discussion that I recall that day was that there were areas within those units that were lop and scattered. It was very deep and dense. Again, lop and scatter. So it was, and then the piling that was done. There was a lot of piling that was probably 3, 4, 5 feet tall, and they were frequently right underneath the canopy of other trees, and the density of the actual work itself was not. They could have taken a lot more out of it. Maybe some of the collaborative members can weigh in on that assessment.
Okay, I know we got Bob and Larry. Let's go with Bob first, and we'll get to Larry.
Thanks. So I agree with all of my compatriots' comments that preceded me, with the disappointment and not looking like what we expected. The biggest single thing that glaringly stood out to me was, I guess it would be the second stop where they were done and all the handwork had been done. And we asked if they were going to take a commercial component and cut some trees. And they said, yes, we can still come back and do that. And I've never seen a job where you do all the fine finish work and handwork first and then go back and have equipment and log. I mean, that doesn't even make sense. That was a really glaring thing to me.
Bob, I think that we actually asked Cody about that, and he said that they weren't intending to actually come back and do any logging in those units, but that they could. They could do it, but they weren't planning to.
All right, Larry.
Well,
Yes, I feel like once again, it's been 10 years, but I mean, what's completely missing is the concept. The original concept was for this to pay its way through the forest and to do a whole long stretch of roadsides. The Forest Service picked this area to work in to create an alternative escape route for Hind Palm residents. We went along with that, but that seems like that's been lost sight of. The idea of it paying its way through the woods, like doing commercial sales to pay for the non-commercial areas that were being treated along the way, the plantations and the areas that were understocked anyway. That was the concept, but that's not what I saw on the ground out there. You know, I saw Joint Chiefs money being used, which is great. I'm glad we got that money, and I'm glad some cleanup's happening, but that wasn't what our proposal was. Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't want to make you guys go back and revisit everything, especially since I'm the one that wasn't there. When I do get back, I'll get out there and get eyes on it. We can always get our folks out there and thin it out some more if we didn't quite get there. I'll go out and review it myself. I do know, Larry, we will always run into some tension of having more acres than value. And so, you know, at least if we analyze a bigger footprint, we leave the door open for Joint Chiefs or rack money or whatever. But, you know, I want to go out and get eyes on it myself. I'm disappointed just by the fact that I heard you say lop and scatter. It was too deep. The piles are too close to the residual trees. Those are all not things that we should be doing. And so I want to get out and get eyes on it and see what we can do to make it right. But I certainly value everyone's opinion, and I'm disappointed that you didn't recognize your project and that it wasn't something you can be proud of. So let me get out there and see what we can do.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Jerry?
Ditto on the economic vision of the pilot program, but then I think it's maybe getting a bit diluted because there's an underlying conversation of using the linear feature to move into a more landscape feature. And I think that kind of changes the dynamics of the approach.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Any other comments on pilot or any of the other? Go ahead, Arnold.
Well, it got alluded to briefly by Kelly, but really the aside from the economic problem, which was a big concern, maybe the biggest concern of some people, I think that first part also failed on the fuel break integrity. It was there was much more left than we would have left. And so the result is was less of a fuel break. And so I guess when Tara goes out, maybe she can look at that. But it just wasn't it bore almost no relation to the kinds of stuff we were talking about for more than one reason. And the thickness of the residual trees is another big problem, I think.
Thank you, Arnold.
Ren.
Yeah, and in addition to what has already been said, some of the units, particularly on the 8 road, I mean, there's what seem to be half-acre, quarter-acre units, that timber sale units, that have nearly every single merchantable tree marked as a leaf tree, with maybe 2 or 3 10 to 12 inch diameter trees that are left unmarked, forcing the purchaser of the timber sale to cut half, or in some instances less than a quarter of a load of logs out of a unit, and then also cut all of the biomass and skid that to the road. However, it seems like that's an expectation with this project for the timber sale purchaser. My point is that there are many units along the 8 road, particularly on the east side of the Butter Creek drainage and the east of Rush Creek drainage, that have less than a load of logs in the units. I think that's going to be it's going to make it much more difficult for this to pay its way through the woods when there are timber sale units that don't even pay for themselves.
Yep, and I will tell you, there are some of those units that are completely marginal, and that won't pay their way out of the woods. And so that's why we did leverage some of the money that we got through the wildfire crisis strategy to try and connect those treatments, the commercial versus the non-commercial. And the truth is, the value just isn't there for that whole 2,000 acres to carry all of the work that would be done to connect the treatment and have it be, have it run all along those roads. We would have areas that we didn't treat. Now, Ren, I agree with you. If you're going to mark the trees, for goodness sakes, we probably should have marked just the cut trees. And if there's not a load there, then just make that service work. And that's stuff that we're still trying to figure out how to do a better job of. The mark itself should be consistent with what the collaborative wanted, because we did that with you guys and really had a lot of interaction with the marking crew and with the group. There'll definitely be lessons learned for us, Ren, and these linear features do make some of these things challenging. I'll just put it that way.
Okay, we're getting to where we probably need to wrap this up. We'll go with Xander here and then see if we can. Go ahead, Xander.
Thanks. I just wanted to bring up a recollection I had. I unfortunately missed the most recent trip, but I think 3 summers ago now, when the watershed folks helped with some of the marking, one of the first collaborative trips I went on, there was a conversation about really being more conservative with the prescription. I remember there being a prescription change where initially there was more trees, more volume slated for removal, i.e. a wider spacing, than the collaborative was comfortable with. And so based on that feedback, the Forest Service really tightened up that prescription, which is what we ended up using to mark. And so I just wanted to put that forward with respect, speaking to the merchantability and kind of the balance of the economics of the project, for what that's worth.
Thank you, Xander. All right, David.
Great discussion here. I'm appreciating it. I just, for this agenda item overall, more discussion about pilot than the other projects. But I'm wondering if you can relate pilot and lessons learned back to the other projects as they're being planned or developed. And this may be for another meeting in January, or I'm just suggesting keeping this on the agenda, because again, I wonder what lessons can be learned from this, and also what are the next steps the collaborative sees for input on those other projects, and what timelines may be attached to that. As we're all working to develop, say, the Junction City project, what would be the next point of engagement that would be most useful to the collaborative? What work product does the collaborative want to produce in order to inform the project design? So basically, I'm just suggesting that this agenda comes back, this item comes back to round out the discussion for moving forward.
All right, thank you, David. We've taken note of that. Make sure that happens. Larry.
Yeah, just real quick, I wanted to say that Xander's right. We did go out there and we did look at the mark in a couple of specific units, and it was going to open it up too much. But it's apples and oranges. We didn't look at those same units again. We were looking at different units this time. So yeah, anyways, that's part of the confusion, I think.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Yes, very, very good discussion. This is clearly a subject matter that sounds like needs further discussion, further consideration. So we will definitely see a follow-up on our January agenda. And between now and then, maybe we can continue to think as was suggested, how lessons learned from how pilots going and looking how that can translate to impacting other projects and how those should take shape. So thank you all again for your feedback. I'm sure Tara and her team are taking copious notes here, trying to ensure that they understand where the collaborative is coming from. So we are now going to move on here to our next agenda item, wildfire camera update. Jerry, you got an update for us?
I do, and I'm hoping Ben can come in on it too. Just to let you know, the camera on Horse Mountain downriver is operational now. I encourage you to take a look at that one. The view shed is quite remarkable. Ironside Mountain is on hold. Forest Service has to do some consultation with the tribes, and then it'll go out for scoping. And there's a couple of options, a couple of choices to make on how to establish it once all the paperwork and the details are taken care of. Ben and Forest Service made sure that the permits for the 6 additional cameras got to digital path. And so they have all the paperwork needed to go forth, and they're hoping to get the first camera up on Picket Peak done this year. And or soon, maybe by the end of the month, I think Kevin told me, and then it'll all be dependent on weather and access for the other 5 cameras. So glad that that paperwork was completed and has moved through the system. Ben, you got anything?
No, you covered it well, Jerry. Appreciate it. Yeah, all 6 digital path cameras were fully executed, so those are getting set up or will be set up before the 2025 fire season. And we have a pretty solid path to move forward on the camera placement in Ironside Mountain. So the staff will work on that over the winter, and hopefully we'll have that one plus the other 6 all up and operational before the 2025 fire season. So awesome work with everybody working on that those cameras. So appreciate it.
Hey, Ben, just for the record, what are the 6 sites?
Oh, good test question.
I got them if you can't bring them to mind.
Don't mean to put you on the spot.
I would need to dig through my emails and find where
Okay,
those
I got them. It's going to be Hayfork Valley Lookout, the Tom Head Lookout, Lime Dyke Lookout, Knob Peak, and Bear Mountain. And then Picket Peak is the 6th one.
Great, thanks, Jerry.
All right, thank you, Jerry, Ben, good updates. Glad to hear progress continues on that front. Any, Carol, you got a question, follow-up?
Yeah, so I'm just curious, moving forward, is there still a committee working on this, or is it just Jerry, which I appreciate? Just because I've been responding to Callan's questions about the potential for a camera on Bonanza King, and we're still trying to organize the camera on for Trinity Center on Frethy Ridge. And so I'm just not sure kind of how the coordination is working on additional cameras. So I don't know what you guys think.
Carol, I have not forgotten Bonanza King. I just wanted to make sure that this incredible labyrinth we've been walking through for the other cameras are complete. I just didn't want to compete and confuse things. So it's on the list.
Okay, so maybe I'll just kind of coordinate straight with you. Would that help?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any questions or further discussion on the wildfire camera front? Not seeing any.
Yeah.
Again, thank you.
And now we have winter.
Yes, yep. Thank you, Jerry, Ben, and all who have been working hard to keep that moving forward and getting some additional cameras online. Very much appreciated. Okay, up next, Minersville boat ramp update. Sarah, do you have an update for us?
Yes, good morning, everyone. So for Minersville Boat Ramp, we've been doing a lot of work with our contractor, TEPA, over the last couple months in light of the feedback we got from our public meeting, especially regarding the parking situation. So what we're really trying to do is make sure that the public's interest in maintaining the current parking setup is able to happen. And so what happens when our contractors and engineers look at the slopes involved is that they express some concerns about safety. So they need to make sure that they can build out the rock on the side of the boat ramp in such a way that they can reduce some of the slopes to safer slopes for people to park on, and also meet the functionality of the boat ramp. So it's been a lot of back and forth on how we make the parking work, and some work in that regard. But I would say we are in a much better place in terms of understanding, or our contractors are in a much better place in terms of understanding, and they're working towards a solution. What I do not want to happen, and I know there's a strong interest in pushing forward on Minersville, and we are pushing as much as we can. I do not want to put out a project that is going to miss the mark in terms of what people want for parking at Minersville. So we're doing everything possible to get to meet that mark And that is taking some additional time. So that is where we're at.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Anybody have any questions for Sarah on Minersville?
I just had one question, Sarah. With the transition of the NRA to the to the Trinity National Forest, or the actual Trinity River Management Unit, are you going to be releasing? I mean, are you handing that off too, or are you going to continue to work on this project after that May date?
I would anticipate that that would transition to the TRMU, but I would say that decision is not final yet. The transition isn't scheduled to happen until May, and we should be getting some, we're having some internal meetings about basically what gets transferred when, and Minersville is a topic that we go over each time we have one of those meetings. So it's not going to get lost in the shuffle one way or another. It's going to continue to be a top priority and actively managed, whether it's by my unit or by the TRMU.
We had originally, well, the other additional thing was that, you know, you and I had talked a little bit about the RCD becoming a CEQA lead for the mitigation that I guess was needed as part of the Water Control Board requirements. Is that still something that we should have a sit down about?
I think it's still worth having that conversation. Yes. We're not at that permitting stage yet because we don't have the engineering design ready to go to that stage. So I don't want to kick off an environmental process if we don't have a pretty solid design that we're going to base this on. But yes, I think it would still be very fruitful for us to have that conversation, Kelly.
Okay. When would you foresee needing to begin to have that discussion?
January, February.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
All right, thanks again, Sarah, for that update. Doesn't look like we have a lot of, oh, there's Carol. There we go, Carol.
Of course. Just because this came up at the Recreation Committee last week, and so I just want to let the group know. So what Sarah is saying is that we're still at the 60% design. We haven't been able to move to the 90% design while they're dealing with this issue of how to deal with the slopes. I think I suggested, and the Recreation Committee kind of also concurred, that there are designs out there. If you look at Lake Shasta and New Melones Reservoir and stuff, where they do have the parking lots on the lake bottom, there are other designs, and we were hoping that, and I guess DBAL sent those to the Forest Service, so I'm hoping that they can take advantage of that and really move this project forward, because I was at the Grumpy Old Men's meeting this morning, our local coffee clutch, and that was something that came up, so I'm just getting chewed on, passing that on. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Carol. Yeah, we did talk through that last week, and I think it's a great thing for us to be considering. And DBAO has been, and that's the Department of Budding Waterways, you know, above and beyond in terms of their partnership and getting us those designs from other areas where they have solutions to this parking situation.
All right. Thank you, Carol. Sarah? Any others? Not seeing any. We will move on to BLM. Jennifer, I think you have some exciting news to share with the group.
Yes. So good morning, everyone. Yeah, first and foremost, hopefully everybody saw Kelly's email, but the NSIPs, our resource management plan revision that we have been working on for about 9 years, was finalized on the 13th of November. So we are finally done with the NSIP, which is great news for my staff and even for all of the counties that we service, because now we have a new management plan to move forward with to guide our direction for the next 20 to 30 years. So super excited to have that done. And now our next step is to start taking a look at the implementation items that we included in the plan and to figure out kind of where we want to go from here. So anyway, so round of applause. Thanks for everybody who commented, and for those of you who stuck with us through all 9 years of planning. All right, so a couple other things. I do want to highlight, we were successful in getting some prescribed fire on the ground in Trinity County. So we completed 2 units on 2 separate entries out at Indian Creek in the last couple of weeks. So for a total of 142 acres of broadcast burning. So excited about that. We likely won't have another drying window to get any more broadcast fire on the ground out there. But if we do, we will attempt to take advantage of it. So I do want to thank all of our partners who were integral in helping us pull that off, because without them, we would not be successful. So the RCD, their crew was out there with us on the first unit that we burned. So thank them. CAL FIRE, the Forest Service, for helping us participate and loaning a contingency engine to us, which we need to have to make the burn successful. And we even got some help from both Whiskeytown and Lassen National Park. So a true interagency partner effort to get that burn on the ground. So, and then we'll just be continuing with pile burning for the rest of the winter. We have piles in 4 of the 5 counties that we have in the field office. So, but we do have plans to do pile burning in some of the units at Reading Indian Creek, the community forest, Oregon Mountain, and Browns Mountain. So we'll be seeing burn notifications from the BLM for essentially the rest of the winter. And then really, I think the last thing is we continue, those of you who were at the community forest public meeting, we continue to work with the Yurok tribe on their West Weaver project. So they are hoping to get that kind of draft NEPA to a point with us that we can get that out here in the next couple of months. So that project is ongoing. I think that's about it. We'll begin, I know there was some discussion about the Forest Service program of work. We'll really begin to kind of narrow our program of work down in January. We have a draft program of work now, but without a budget and with an administration change, we'll be waiting until January to really kind of narrow down our priorities. And that's it. I'm around if anybody has any questions.
Very good, Jennifer. Thank you very much. Any questions for Jennifer?
Hey, this is Chris from the NRCS. I got a quick question for Jennifer. I was just wondering how open the BLM is to, I guess, public involvement or just non-agency involvement in their burning, whether that be pile or broadcast burning, assuming they, you know, have the proper quals like a red card. Because I know the Forest Service, as well as, you know, the Watershed Center, they pull in local folks who are interested, sometimes the VFD people, and I've heard, you know, stirrings of interest in being involved in BLM burns as well. And I was just wondering how open they are to that, or you are to that, and, you know, if notifications could go out to make some of that happen.
Yeah, we are open to it. We have a process we have to jump through to allow people to assist us on burns. I mean, it's one thing to come watch, it's another thing to participate. But yeah, we can work through that. So if you're interested, Chris, or you know of specific people, we can connect you with Garrett Dunn, our FMO, and we can kind of work through that.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, I'll get with Garrett.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Anything else for Jennifer? Thank you very much, Jennifer. Good report.
Thanks.
Okay, up to Forest Service updates. We're gonna have Six Rivers go first here. So Kristen, are you ready to give us a report?
Yeah, I am. Thanks. I'm all ready. So it's that time of year where we're putting the bow on things and you know, finishing up some projects and setting the stage for new work. And so my staff's been out. One project I'll bring up is the fall plant for reforestation. This has been a partnership with the Watershed Center and the Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District. It was a CCI grant that helped fund
the purchase of our trees. So we are actually out currently now tree planting. This weather that came through caused us some delays and consternation, but we're out there planting the trees, and we'll have about an additional 500 acres of reforestation in the upper Mad watershed, in water spout area, part of the August fire up in there. So that's going really well, and happy to get that done. Additionally, prescribed fire, we accomplished about 45 acres of pile burning in Salt Creek. So we're pretty much done with that for now. We have some complexities with the funding situation, limiting our overtime opportunity for prescribed fire. We're trying to the direction has been to get pile burning done within an 8-hour day. We do have some funding to pay for overtime from landscape funds and that are shared between the Six Rivers and Shasta Trinity. And so we're working up how we would use those as we move out on prescribed fire. Of course, the Shasta Trinity has a much more robust prescribed fire program than I currently have here on the district. But now that I have a fire planner in place and we have our new system in place for the AA briefings, we're stepping that up a little bit more. So that's good news. And then some other project work we have going on with recreation is our OHV trails. So Jim Dees, my recreation specialist, excuse me, has been working with the Watershed Center, who is planning on seeking a OHV grant in the spring to do maintenance on our OHV trails. And so all that helps with fuel reduction as well, having that access in there. So that's been going really well. Then we supported Trinity County in their need to rebuild the section of the Ruth Senior Road closer to the guard station that failed. That construction looks to be pretty much done. The road was realigned inward into the cut slope a little bit more on Forest Service. So we changed the easement, the pavement's down. There's fill material that is compacted that and stockpiled that's going to be used for future projects. So that was a very good working relationship that we had with County DOT. That I think that our good neighbor agreement, although it didn't put any funds into there, having that good neighbor agreement that we have with the two forests with the county just has helped improve that working relationship and has given the county more opportunities to be more strategic with their funding with the projects that they need to do. Then on to timber and fuel reduction projects. So on November 16th, I had a field visit for the Rat Tail Integrated Vegetation Management Project. It's in the landscape, only small portions in Trinity County. And Larry Glass attended that, Kimberly Baker from Epic, and then Lance Berry, who's a local purchaser. So I feel like we had a really good field trip and looked at issues there, and we are currently working through response to comments on that NEPA and are looking to have that draft out here pretty soon. And then that we will be moving into that 45-day objection period for that decision. And the other project that we're working on as well is the South Fork Mountain Vegetation Management Project. That's the joint project between the two forests. We have a draft scoping letter and a draft map. And so specialists are doing some final touches on that. And I expect that to come out sometime in December to have that scoping letter come out. So it's not pre-decisional. We do have a footprint. The footprint was informed by the use of land tender and which is now called Vibrant Planet. And we just have, we have stand exams done. And so we don't necessarily have units laid out, but we have stands laid out in that. And I would share my screen, but I'm not sure I know how to do it here in Zoom to give you a picture of that map, but
the green button at on the bar at the bottom would allow you to share
okay.
the screen.
Okay, let's see. Did I do that properly?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, good. Oh, look at me. Something, a new skill. So there is the South Fork Mountain project, the project boundary, you know, another one of those long linear projects. However, we recognize the fact that topography and stands are important to treat cohesively, you know, across these linear features. And that's why you're seeing those wider areas in there. And so the bright yellow are proposed thinning treatment units with commercial. The majority of the commercial will be on the Shasta Trinity. There's not much commercial on the Six Rivers, Mad River side of that. And then the remainder of that sort of goldenrod color there are proposed fuel treatment units of varying prescriptions in there. There's obviously, you all know, we've had the August come through there, the South Fork Mountain, South Fork Complex, and various other fires have come through that footprint, you know, over the last several years. So, so anyway, that's the one that we're working on right now. We will be looking for an emergency declaration to preclude the objection period on this project. This project is wholly within the Bramlett high priority fire shed, which allows us to seek that consideration for the emergency declaration. And so that's why why the project is cut off where it's cut off, so that we are wholly in that. I had some hard lessons with projects that are not wholly within a fire shed, and the lack of ability then to use those emergency declarations. So that's that project, and I'm going to stop sharing. And then the last thing I wanted to do is I just wanted to give a thank you to Bethany Llewellyn. We know she's moving on. This is her last week. She's been so great to work with. And I'm going to reach over here real quick. And I know she's still around in town. I don't know if she's watching. Let's see if we can see it. So I have some gifts for her. This is our tree that we give out to folks, and you know, she's worked so hard on several projects with us, and I'm going to make sure that to get that over to her before she leaves town. But I just wanted, last thing I wanted to end with was a big, huge thank you to Bethany, and that we're going to miss her. So.
Thank you, Kristen. I'll pass that along. And she'll be, my understanding is that their move date is closer to the end of the month. So you have another week or so before to get it over if you can.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I'll have somebody I have a couple other things for her, drop it off at the office there for her. So
fantastic.
Okay, yeah. So end of report. And I see Larry has his hand up.
Go ahead, Larry.
Yes, thank you. Do you have a digital copy of that project area map that you just displayed that you could send out? Or available online somewhere?
Yes, I have people for that. So, because I can't do anything anymore in GIS pretty much. So yeah, let me check on that and see where they are. There's been a flurry of activity in the T drive with the GIS stuff on this just this week. So it should be ready to share out really soon. So I'll make a note of that, Larry, that you'd like to see that.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, Kristen, thank you for your report. We do have additional hands here. So Ren, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Kristen. Ren Winter with Trinity River Lumber. I was just curious. You said you had a field trip for Rat Tail, and you said November 16th. Maybe, I'm not sure when you meant. Was that tomorrow?
Yeah. So I had a request from Epic, from Kimberly Baker, who had submitted
comments during the public comment period on the project.
Uh-huh.
And so we accommodated her request. So it wasn't a field trip it wasn't like a show me trip type. It was to address certain questions that she had in her comment letter. And Larry was a signatory through SAFE and NEC on that letter. So he joined, and then Lance Berry also had submitted a letter on that project as well. And so that's what that is. But if you're interested,
It was in October. I think that's what's confusing.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
Well-
Thank you. Yes, you're right. It was October, so we had it already. Thanks. Sorry about that.
But I would like to add that we would be interested in at least being informed if there are possibilities of attending in-person field trips whenever you have those.
Yes, absolutely. I did not do like a end of public comment period type of field trip for this project that would have just been opened up generally. This was responding to a request, and my NEPA planners told me that I did this all in the right way. So, but I hear what you're saying, and yes, absolutely. I'll put you on the list for any future field trips.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else for Kristen on her report? Not seeing any. Thank you once again, Kristen, for your update here. Moving on, we're up to the NRA. So Sarah, anything else for the National Recreation Area?
Yeah, so Trinity Camps, just a quick Trinity Camps update. Work has started at the airport, and I believe, checking my update here, most of the trees are on the ground, I believe. They're still in discussions about when exactly the Hayward piece will come into play and actually be implemented. But as that occurs, we'll be sure and keep the collaborative fully in the loop. And I know Carol has been out there to take a look at it and also engaging with Cody. So Carol, would certainly welcome your thoughts here.
Yeah, I mean, so far it looks good. I mean, they've been taking out lots of log trucks. Hopefully the openings will be okay with the KOA campers. It's pretty small trees that they leave, and I understand they have to take the big ones because those are the ones that the pilots are all complaining about. So anyway, yeah, I'll check with Cody because my major concern right now is there are big piles of slash, and I don't know how they're gonna deal with that. So yeah, yeah, they were out there. I was out there this morning talking to them, and they're working hard.
Great, good to hear it. On another project note, our North Trinity County Risk Reduction Project is at the SO for review for the scoping package. So all of the conversations that we've had with the collaborative and our field trips have been sort of pre the initial public scoping period. So that scoping period should be kicking off soon. We are going to be thinking about the holidays in terms of when we release that document and kind of the timeline that comments close, so that we don't overlap Christmas essentially as best we can, or give people a little bit of an extension so they don't have to be thinking about the Forest Service when they're at Christmas dinner with their families, because I know I will hopefully not be thinking about the Forest Service on Christmas. They can have 364 days a year, but the 365th is mine. So that's what I got on North Trinity.
So the scoping letter is on the supervisor's desk. It's been sent out to the tribes. So you're saying you're not sure when you're going to send it out to the general public?
Oh, I think we'll send it out to the general public very shortly.
Okay.
And it's just a matter of when the deadline for comments is. We may put a deadline and then extend it just so that we don't have it overlap.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah, for your update. Any questions and any additional follow-up for Sarah?
So I guess the recreation committee comes later. Okay, never mind.
Yep, we're almost there, Carol. One more. Don't see anything else for you, Sarah. Thank you again very much for your update. Up next, we've got Shasta Trinity. Ben, you got an update for us?
Sure. So we'll talk about the WCS landscape team transition, and if Marcus is still on. You still on, Marcus?
I'm here.
Did you want to lead out on this, since it's near and dear to your heart?
Yep, I sure will. So, as you all know, our landscape did not receive, first of all, the way these landscapes were established starting in 2021, there was a first round and a second round of landscapes. And I'm sure a lot of you already know this. I'm just giving you some context and detail in case we kind of forgot our history. So our landscape was established in 2023. It was a second round of landscapes. The agency, due to budget shortfalls, made the decision that first landscapes, the first priority landscapes, were to be funded, meaning that the second ones, which would be the Trinity, was not. So this put our forest supervisors in a difficult spot and had to make some decisions on how to best utilize our team, which consisted of about 11 people. That was our core WCS team. So they decided to go through a transition plan to house us. Basically, we were our own kind of separate organization between the two forests. And now we're housed underneath the umbrella of the forests, both the Six Rivers and the Shasta Trinity. So that means we're funded a little differently, and they can use allocated funding to stand up this team. That does not mean the WCS landscape goes away, nor the projects. It has been clearly stated that we still want to pursue increasing pace and scale of our work. And instead of being called a core team or WCS team, we're now a task force, which could include some other members. It might remove some members, but basically it's still kind of the same players, and we're still meeting weekly, and we're still working as a task force to move landscape projects forward. But our job titles and positions will be changed somewhat, and we'll be taking on some forest level work in addition to our landscape work. And again, that is to streamline and to generate efficiencies in how we fund our employees. So for some of you, a matter of fact, I tried to reach out to David Colbeck this week, just so he was aware. I'm still going to remain a point of contact for some of our agreements out there, like with Trinity County and our Good Neighbor Authority. So some of those duties I have and some of our other employees had, they will still maintain those duties. You might just see us working on some other things and have some changes in our titles. But we're still here. We're still moving the mission forward. We're just rearranging our team a little bit. So this generated a little bit of alarm because people thought things were going away. We're not going away. We're just wearing different hats. So is there any questions on that?
Arnold.
So,
Yes, Arnold.
So are all team members still on the two forests?
Yes. So they will be housed between the Six Rivers and the Shasta Trinity. And I don't have my list in front of me, but I could go name by name if you were curious on who lives where.
And so is was her name Bobby, that was the head, the ranger level leader?
Yes.
And so
Yep.
is she still exist? Is she still a ranger level? Why is she demoted? What? How do we handle her position?
Yes, good question. So Bobby part of the transition is that, well, as you guys know, Kelly McElroy has had a very full plate. So what the plan was is to try to kind of split out our ecosystem staff shop on the Shasta Trinity, with Kelly taking on more of the ecosystem management implementation side. A matter of fact, that's who is now my new supervisor, is Kelly, and I'll be working under her in her staff area. Whereas Bobby will take kind of the planning side of that ecosystem staff shop. So she's going to basically, they're going to divide the supervision between the two, and hopefully relieve a little bit of Kelly's workload, which has been pretty significant. So, and then again, Bobby will still be maintaining some level of involvement with the WCS, but the actual point of contact, the lead now, as we're calling him, will actually be Corey Davis. So Corey Davis will, I guess you could say, he's kind of like the task force leader of the WCS team now. Other positions, such as Bronson Dillard, he'll be also working kind of ecosystem staff, working as a forester for the Six Rivers side. And our PAOs have been split. So those are our public affairs officers. So Bob Doucette will be now working for the Shasta Trinity National Forest, covering WCS, but also covering forest public affairs. Whereas we have Daniel Linari, who will be working for the Six Rivers, doing that side of the forest. And then so we had some administrative staff, and they're going to be absorbed by Jen Freed, who's been helping us with a lot of our grants and agreements. She'll be absorbed into the Shasta Trinity, and actually I'll be her work leader. And we'll be continuing to move a lot of those projects, those grants, agreements forward. I'm trying to think of who else got, our GIS. We had 3 GIS members. One actually retired just recently, kind of a medical retirement. That was Becky Dobbs. And then we had Guy Moody. He and Eric Kinnis will be moved to the Shasta Trinity, but they will also be focused on landscape projects, but helping with forest level GIS work as well. And also Eric specifically will be helping with doing some of the modeling and the Vibrant Planet work that we've been doing on the landscape.
Thank you. So now, wait. Thank you for that, but I'm not finished yet. I understood the presentation of the Board of Supervisors, which we received a copy of, and your initial comments to say that all this transition is in an effort to save money, and it does save money, but so it's unclear to me how it's saving money.
Yeah, I think it's really the color of money that we don't have the landscape money that was specifically funding that team. So now by moving us under the umbrella of the forest, we're able to use other dollars, specifically these job codes NFSE, which is basically our standard pot of money for salary and expenses. So now the team is being able to be funded under some of those different accounts that we weren't tapping into before.
So thank you. And it might be possible to say that, or to translate it into my lingo, we're not spending less money on landscape. It's just different money.
Yes and yes. So we didn't get funded with IRHF this year. So our team and the projects that we funded this last year were all under that special delegation IRA funding. We used the job code IRHF. That money was specific to the landscape. We did not get that money again. So they had to look for other pots of money to fund us with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. I just don't know if, if the average taxpayer like me might not understand that less money is being spent.
So Arnold, it looks like looks like Tara may have some insight for us. So Tara.
Yeah, Arnold, by taking the WCS landscape team and plugging them into existing vacancies that we have on the forest, Bobby is a great example. The Shasta Trinity National Forest does not have a fisheries biologist at the forest level, so she'll take on that role. So instead of having a dedicated team to the landscape and then our full forest staff, we're taking that dedicated team and plugging them into some of those vacancies that we already had. So the money that you're saving as a taxpayer is that we're not going to go out then and fill the positions that we've plugged these people back into. So you don't have that duplication. Does that make sense? So
Okay.
I want you to know we're
Yeah.
spending your money wisely and we're filling some gaps with the people we have available, which is going to help us keep getting things done.
Thank you for saying that, Tara. And that was an important part I missed. So they had to look at the organizational charts and see where there was existing vacant positions. And so that's where we were housed under. So they're not hiring other people to vacate. They're just utilizing our team to fill a lot of those vacancies.
Okay. I suspected something like that and I kept pushing you, but I didn't draw it out. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad Tara stepped in.
Thank you for that update, Marcus. Ben, anything else for us on the Shasta T?
No, just looking at time and trying to keep us on track, I'll just highlight on the west side of the Shasta Trinity National Forest, we've started implementing prescribed fire activities. Just over the last week or two, we've been successful in 30 acres of understory burning in the Weevil Community Forest on a 5-cent burn unit. So 30 acres there with lots of great help between interagencies and our partners, between us, the BLM, Park Service, RCD, and the Watershed Center. So great work there. Due to the weather that has moved in, we've shifted our focus to pile burning, and we knocked out some piles in the Clear Creek area, which is just outside between Big Bar and High and Palm. And now we're focusing on the piles up Rainier Road, just outside Mule Creek. So over the last 2 weeks, we're close to 100 acres burned so far. So great work there with all the interagency work and working with our partners. And I just want to highlight the amazing amount of hours and work performed by the volunteers with the recreation aspect of the things. Volunteer programs across the forest were able to accomplish 5,000 plus hours of recreational improvement across the Shasta Trinity National Forest this summer. So amazing work by those volunteer organizations and programs. So I just wanted to highlight that and give them a big shout out and a good job to that group of people. So I'll keep it short and sweet since some of my topics already came up on the agenda, and appreciate the report. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ben, very much. Any follow-up for Ben? Any questions? Seeing none, we're gonna move on. Okay, up next, we do have a couple items from the rec committee that there's been a fair amount of discussion at the rec committee level. And these are a couple of items that the rec committee had come to consensus on and wanted to bring these two items before the full collaborative. So with that, we're going to start with a recommendation proposal from the rec committee that the management focus of the Stewart's Fork boat ramp change from its current use as a boat ramp that's in disrepair to a day use area. So I'm going to call upon Carol to give a little more background on this topic and take it from there, Carol.
Okay, so the Recreation Committee kind of came to a consensus that the boat ramp itself, because of the lake levels, doesn't get used very often as a ramp itself, but it does get used a lot as an access point to the lake. This summer, there were tons of people that just drive down it and then drive along the lake and camp along the lake or use it as swimming hole access or whatever. but the Forest Service doesn't capture any income from all that use because people only have to pay if it's a boat ramp. So we were suggesting, since there's already parking, bathrooms, access, that Forest Service look at using it as a day use area. And I think Sarah and Ben maybe we're going to look at the feasibility of doing that, so they maybe can respond to that, whether or not that's a feasible thing to move towards.
Yep, in regards to the Stewart's Fork boat ramp and changing that to a day use area, I've been in communication with our West Side Rec officer and Brenda Tracy down here with special uses and recreation, her whole umbrella. And she provided me some input on the feasibility and the possible workforce budget challenges to implement that. So it's just something that we'll have to just dive into a little bit more this winter and come up with a better idea if there is a game plan to move forward with that and what that would look like, and yeah, basically how that would look like and how would we implement that knowing our current hiring and budget status. So let us do a little bit more digging with those two individuals so we can flush some really good ideas out, and I'll get back to you guys once we kind of just put our heads together a little bit more and flush out some ideas.
Okay. The other piece of that puzzle is potentially using the grant from DBOW to stabilize the boat ramp, which physically might be really tough, and instead use it for improvements. So, okay, thank you. That would be great if you guys can keep looking at that.
Yep, I'll keep working with McFadden and Brenda on that. Yep.
Okay, any comments, feedback from the collaborative members who've not been a part of this discussion to date? This, again, I think the rec committee's expectations were that they'd bring this kind of issue forward and just seek feedback and ultimately, support for the recommendation coming out of the rec committee. Jerry. Go ahead, Jerry.
Jerry, you're muted.
How's that?
There you go.
Yeah, no question on this specific project, but Carol, could you update us on who is the rec committee these days?
It's basically Ross and Susan Molyneux, myself, Pete Finney, I think Pat.
Pat, yeah.
Yeah, so not regular collaborative members, although we'd love to have more collaborative members involved, because it includes, and I'm sorry, it also includes the staff from the Watershed Center and the RCD. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Fire department.
Arnold.
So would day use designation still allow people to use the boat ramp? Is there a reason the boat ramp couldn't be used with a change?
No, they could definitely use it as a boat ramp, but it's just that the water levels don't get up high enough. You know, it's like once every 5 or 6 years that it actually has enough water to launch a boat there. Although it was closed this summer, and people were launching boats anyway over the those big concrete barriers. So anyway.
Okay.
Well, I think, Carol, though, it's clear, though, that going forward, the recommendation from the rec committee is not to invest any additional resources in repairing the boat ramp, correct?
Right.
So it would not be a motorized boat ramp under the.
Well, it would be if the water levels are high enough. I mean, if they took out those Jersey barriers this summer, they could have collected money, but they just never bothered.
Okay, any other feedback, comments? Very good. Okay, we will move on to the second item that the rec committee has wanted to bring forward to the full collaborative. And this pertains to a recently established subcommittee of the rec committee, the North Lake Trails Committee. So there's been a fair amount of interest in the Trinity Center community to expand the trail opportunities available to that community, and so the rec committee felt as though there needed to be a subcommittee to kind of address that need and interest, and so Pat Frost volunteered the Trinity Center Community Services District as the functional subcommittee, and they have already met. And with that, I will let I think Jack Carroll is the one that's going to kind of lead this. Go ahead, Carol. Go ahead.
Well, I want to back up for a minute, and then I'll turn it over to Jack. So the Forest Service is currently developing the North Trinity County Communities Risk Reduction Project, which is the fuel reduction project, the big fuel reduction project. And as part of that, during the meetings about that project and the field trip about that project, the Forest Service said that they had the ability and the desire to include some trails in that larger fuel reduction project. So it's not like an independent thing, it's part of that larger scoping for that project. And so that's why I was asking when the scoping document for that would come out, because there's a definite interest to include trails. And so, yes, the Trinity Center Community Services District has recreation as an authority, something we can partner with the Forest Service on. That's why Pat volunteered to head the subcommittee. And yeah, the subcommittee met and we hashed out a bunch of different potential trails, and the Watershed Center has done a fantastic job of laying out probably the best options, and so I'll turn it over to Jack.
Jack, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. How we doing, everybody? Yeah, thanks for the background on the introduction on all that, Carol. Yeah, so I'll be as brief as I can because I know we're approaching the time here. Yeah, the Watershed Center, with an amazing contribution from Trinity Trail Alliance, put together just above 26 miles of proposed alignment to expand the existing Trinity Lake Trail. It would connect, if every single aspect of this trail is included in the NEPA of these fuel reduction process, the new trail could expand all the way from Stony Point Campground up to Covington Mill and then over to Alpine View Campground. It would also establish a loop above Hayward Flat Campground, and it would establish an ADA trail from the Trinity Center boat ramp, as well as a 3.5-mile single track starting from the boat ramp that would be directly accessible to the community of Trinity Center. So that's the very brief introduction to the project. If every single aspect of the proposed trails is included, it would take this 4.15 mile long trail that is currently in existence and then have a 32-mile trail system on the west side of the lake between Stewart's Fork and Trinity Center. So, of course, we've been talking to the NRA about, is this possible? And the last thing we want to do is have the trails aspect of the project get in the way of the fuel reduction efforts. That is absolutely the priority. However, the likelihood of the Forest Service going for just a trail expansion project in this area is incredibly low. So as far as like the why now question, it's because of this fuel reduction effort. If we can get the language in there, if we can have this aspect of the trail associated with the fuel reduction project, it would be a huge boost for this concept.
And many of the segments are already in former Forest Service projects like the Bowerman Cooperative Fuel Break and Trinity Camps, because it kind of goes from campground to campground. And so there, there is a certain amount of additional work to the Highway 3 project, but a lot of it is in ground that they've already kind of covered. And a lot of it's on old mining ditches, so the actual future construction of the trail is going to be pretty straightforward. So, and the community as a whole, separate from the collaborative, is really excited about this. The Community Services Districts approved a letter of support on Tuesday, and we've been collecting signatures on petitions around town. The kids are going around collecting signatures because they want a mountain biking trail that they can access right from Trinity Center. So anyway, what we're looking for, I hope you guys had a chance to review the draft letter, but what we're looking for is a consensus from the collaborative that they would agree to send that letter to the Board of Supervisors, then to send to the Forest Service to show that level of support.
All right, thank you, Carol, for all that background.
Is there a
Jack?
map of the project?
What's that, Ren?
Is there a map?
There is a
There
map.
is. Yeah, I have several that I've shared with the NRA that I can share in a separate email for y'all if you're interested, that captures all those fuel break boundaries as well as the trail expansion potential.
So the lake, while he's doing that, the Lakeshore Trail would go from Clark Springs, essentially around the perimeter of the lake, to the next campground, which is Hayward Flat, and then from Hayward Flat to Covington Mill and Alpine View. So the idea, Ross Molyneux, you guys might remember this, has talked about a trail around the lake that goes campground to campground and, bring a lot of mountain bikers in. So that's the first segment we're proposing. The second one was a loop over Hayward Ridge for those that don't just want to kind of follow a contour, the people that want to actually go up and down, they could add that loop. And then the third stretch is the Trinity Center boat ramp loop. And the letter is written in a way where if the Forest Service says, no, we can't look at all these segments, then the collaborative could kind of come back to them and help prioritize which segments we would actually like to spend more time on.
So Jerry's got his hand up. Jerry, go ahead.
So moved. What a great project.
The letter that I sent to that the CSD sent to the Forest Service had a picture of the mountain biking club at Clark Springs last month. There were 25 kids there and 11 of them were from Trinity Center. So, I mean, it really is, Weaverville has amazing trails in the community forest, but up here, all the trails go up into the wilderness. And so you can't take a mountain bike up there. And so this is something that the local community is really looking at. You got those maps, Jack?
Yes, it probably makes more sense for me to just share this particular presentation so it has everything laid out already for you. So I can share that real quick.
Looks like Sarah's got her hand up. Sarah, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I just wanted to real quickly say thank you to Carol and Jack and the rec committee for working so much over the last couple months to develop these recommendations. And also, Carol, I really appreciated what you said and what was in that letter with respect to if we don't have the capacity to take on all of this, going back to prioritize and look at how we would narrow that down. So I think that was a really thoughtful, reflection of our conversations, and I appreciate it.
All right, thanks. Any other feedback regarding this proposal?
I second the motion.
All right, thank you, Arnold. We got a second on that. Any other discussion, feedback?
Maybe Jack can send the maps to Kelly and Kelly can send them out to the group.
Yep. Yep.
At the risk of seeming to write a hobby horse, I mentioned again, as I did last month, that Board of Supervisors is a singular noun. And so it would take, the first line should say wants instead of want.
Very good. Thank you, Arnold. Sharp eye. Okay, not seeing any further questions or discussion, so should we put it to a vote? We got a first and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Can you do a roll call or just
Just
any opposition?
any opposition?
Yeah, anybody oppose? Maybe that's the best way to get to consensus.
Nope.
Not seeing any opposition, so looks like we've got a consensus, Carol and Jack, to move this forward and present to the Board of Supervisors. Yeah, Jack's happy.
So I can go ahead and make that one little correction on Arnold's recommendation, and then I'll forward this on to Heidi and the CAO to get it on the board on the board's agenda.
And
All right.
yeah, Pat and I will also be contacting Rick Lutweiler because he's the District 1 supervisor, so that's in his district. So want to make sure he's in the loop.
I'll CC both. I'll CC Heidi just as the collaborative rep, so I'll make sure that both of them are on that email, and I'll CC you all too when that goes out.
Great, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you to Carol, Jack, all that's been involved in this and making this a priority and moving this forward. Okay, up next we have Kelly, RCD.
Yeah. As Kristen Lark had mentioned earlier, we're sad to be losing Bethany Llewellyn as our forced health program manager, but we have made a decision after a fairly extensive search and interviewing process to actually promote someone from within our own ranks who's actually been administratively supporting Bethany for about a year now. Shay Callahan will be taking that position and will be floating her role and her position as a project coordinator soon. So we're pretty excited to have Shay kind of stepping into that position. We've been working a fair bit with the Forest Service and the BLM on doing some burning, as was reported earlier, doing a lot of pile burning at this stage. And we actually will be working a little bit collaboratively with Keith Greenwood and SPI, doing some pile burning on their property, I think beginning next week, for some work that we had been doing in conjunction with some private property that we've already been burned up on, that we've already done some pile burning on last season on private lands, adjacent private lands up on Browns Mountain. So that's pretty exciting. We're beginning to wind down our general field season and preparing for the winter we're reducing our 4 forest health crews down to 2, and our forestry techs will probably be laid off during that same time period, over mid-December through probably February or March, depending on how our late winter and spring starts shaping up. Let's see. What else do I need to report out? And I think, and as far as that's concerned, we're just sort of generally winding down our season across our whole kind of contingent. We have pivoted from working on the Weaverville Fuel Break project, which was had been scheduled as the November 1st field tour. I'm getting good response from Ben Sundahl that the funding for that project, we are still hopeful and crossing our fingers to receive that funding. But in the meantime, we've moved to a partner-led NEPA effort that will be working in the North Lake area specifically with regard to roadside fuels, ridgetop fuels, and tying that in with some other projects that we have, in the areas from basically about Covington Mill up through the river complex burn footprint into Coffee Creek and maybe a little bit to the north of that, which is to do fuels reduction projects. And we are hoping to include some road upgrades and things like that for the Trinity Alps access roads, many of which are adjacent to some other work that we're doing on private lands on those same roads through the checkerboard up in that area. So that's going to be a focus as we're moving into through the winter and into the spring survey season. And I think that's all I have right now. Yes, Carol.
So, can you tell me, is that the roadside project, or which project is that and which funding?
It's primarily funded through the first round of well, we have a stewardship agreement currently in hand with a significant amount of funding for partner-led NEPA, or I should say environmental compliance support on both the monument and the river complexes as part of the disaster relief funding that we received through that stewardship agreement. But we will be focusing primarily on this effort with additional funding through the Watershed Center's National Fish and Wildlife Foundation funding that they received for Upper Trinity as well. So that'll be additional funding to help us get that effort completed.
So is it mostly, it's not implementation, it's NEPA?
It's partner-led NEPA, yes.
On federal lands, not private lands?
Correct. And again, like I said, it's adjacent to some of the work that we intend to get accomplished on private lands in through the checkerboard on those same roads.
Okay. I mean, we got a bunch of snow yesterday, just so you know.
Oh yeah, we're aware.
Okay, cool.
Dylan Kirkley, did you have anything to add to that as far as status and where we are with that? I mean, we're very, very introductory kind of parts of the planning for this particular project.
Yes, I believe Eric and I may be planning to go out soon, scope some sites. But yeah, still very, as you say, introductory on that beginning of the project. So hopefully have something a little more after Eric and I go out and work on it next few months.
Because the Trinity Center CSD, we just finished the draft of our fuel management plan. Kenneth laid out a bunch of recommended roadside fuel breaks for us to implement. A lot of them are on federal land. the draft went to the CSD board Tuesday. The final adoption is in December, but it would be great if you could look at our fuel management plan. I can send it to Dylan and see if there are parts of our, because Kenneth, you know, we hired him through the NCRP grant to lay out the priorities for roadside fuel breaks and ridgetop fuel breaks. So we kind of have a bunch of those mapped and laid out. You know, Denise mapped them in your GIS system. So it'd be great to coordinate on that.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Dylan, were you aware of that plan?
No, that'd be great. If you could send that my way, Carol.
I will.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Thanks, Dylan. Yeah, end of report.
All right, thanks, Kelly. Anything else for Kelly? Any questions, follow up on that? Very good. Anybody from the Watershed Research Training Center? I know we had Jack on, but he's a recreation guy, so.
I think, Xander, did you join via phone?
Yeah, that's me with the phone number. My computer died, but I'll give a quick update on forestry and fuels and a little bit of fire stuff that I'm aware of. You know, some of our local fire staff has helped coordinate a few PBA burns in the county before this last rainstorm. Sounds like they had some pretty good successes there. The forestry crews have been, I think the Bowerman project is essentially done with all the field layout for the first round of implementation, which will be the timber sale. The planning side of that is we're still kind of trapped with the inescapable last minute minute details that really need to get hammered out before it's of a quality that can be passed on to the forest. And then we've begun doing some field layout for the forest health grant that the Watershed Center received for private land treatments in Hayfork and Hyam-Palm. So we're on track to get our VTP EIR hopefully signed in December, and then be able to start implementation in Hyam-Palm in the coming spring, and simultaneously kind of looking at our compliance strategy for the Hayfork side of that grant project. But the Hayfork implementation will probably be a year after Hyam-Palm begins, roughly. Like Kristen mentioned earlier, we've got folks helping with a plantation effort on the Six Rivers, and we've had staff help out locally on the Shasta T with some burns. So that's my update.
Thank you, Xander. Any questions for Xander? Carol, do you have your hand up? Thank you. All right, Xander, thanks once again. Any questions for Xander? Not seeing any.
Before we go on, I did have one go back.
Okay.
That I failed to mention. Tuesday, we did have a post-op field tour up to the Oregon Mountain timber sale on BLM property within the community, Weaverville Community Forest. We had extended out the invite for both the steering committee, but also with the collaborative. And I know a number of folks on the call here were on that tour. I think that the tour went off pretty well. And, you know, generally speaking, it certainly looks like, you know, a fairly light touch logging operation, you know, outside of the fact that we probably are pushing some of the comfort level, I would say, of the collaborative members, just based on, you know, the prescriptions that the collaborative has set forth in the past. But we will be using retained receipts. We received about $168,000 of retained receipts through that timber sale. We've already implemented about $40,000 worth of work, doing some of the cleanup. in those areas before they had closed some of the temp roads. Those roads are now closed, but we still have some a fair bit of work to do up there. And we'll be, continuing to seek funding for treatments as we're going through monitoring and maintenance on those areas into the future. So I wanted to recognize that that sale is complete. The roads are all closed and buttoned up, and I think it was a fairly successful operation, and we're and if there was anybody that was on that tour that wanted to comment to that effect, that would be great.
All right, not seeing any there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah.
Okay, up next, I believe we've got this kind of question coming out of the Fire Safe Council. Jerry, not sure if I got this quite right, but I think you had a question about a U.S. Forest Service Fire Programmatic EA. Did you want to elaborate on that for us, Jerry?
I don't remember that too well, but were we looking for, somebody was working on a programmatic approach for burns, right? Prescribed burns?
I think that was what I understood from that last Fire Safe Council meeting, and I think it was requested that that it be brought to this group to ask the question of the Forest Service whether or not that was something that they could elaborate a little bit more on and share with this group.
Is that Ben?
Larry, did you have any additional recollection of what that discussion entailed?
Well, not exactly, but what I did want to talk about was I sat in on a statewide Zoom meeting with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service where they're getting ready to do a programmatic document around fire and forest thinning and whatnot. So that's also a programmatic that's in the offing.
David.
Yes, I recall this was coming out of the Junction City project tour, and I think the context was where the Junction City project was looking to create the fuel lines and the template essentially for burning to happen later. That programmatic that was talked about, and I think it was Randy Paris who had mentioned that, but it was also echoed by Cody Carter and Nate Ulrich that was something that was in the works or in process. So I know I'm stepping on Ben's response here at the moment, but I wanted to say that the Six Rivers National Forest has a fuels and fire. It's not exactly a programmatic EA, but it's a condition-based management sort of approach that they have up and running. I think this is the first full season that they've been trying to work with that, which of course does relate to other programmatics coming from the Fish and Wildlife Service and some others. So that's just a little bit of context from what I know of it.
Ben, you want to chime in here?
Yeah, just real quick. So the programmatic is going to be for the Shasta National Forest and the Klamath National Forest. And the regional office is leading that charge for that programmatic. I don't have the fine details of it. Maybe Marcus, do you have details? I know that team did some field visits a week or so ago, just to kind of get some familiarity with the local conditions and projects that are currently being undertaken or planned. But that's pretty much all I know right now since the regional office led effort. But it's going to cover the Shasta Trinity and Klamath National Forests.
Right. Thank you,
Yeah,
Ben.
that's about as much as I have as well, Ben.
Okay, thanks, Marcus.
Okay, I don't believe we have any U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, so
Christine's off this month.
Okay. So we will move on to concluding business, and I do appreciate everyone's patience here and hanging in. We are running over a little bit, so we will do rapid fire here. So anything from us, Kelly, on the facilitation team?
Not that we haven't already talked about.
Okay. Field tour planning. I suspect there's not much in the offing for December. Is that an accurate assessment, Ben, or any other Forest Service folks want to?
Here's hoping.
We have nothing planned for December, due to the weather and, the holiday season falling upon us.
Yeah, very good. And then, so as has been mentioned today, as well as the previous meeting, February, I think there's agreement, consensus that it's kind of slated for a program of work type meeting in lieu of a field tour. So that's kind of what we have set up for February with respect to kind of the field tour focus for that month. So probably more details will be forthcoming as we approach February. That brings us to agenda building. We do have a couple of things that have come up through the course of the meeting today. Anything else on anyone's mind that you want to make sure gets on next meeting's agenda for January?
So,
Okay.
sorry.
Carol?
Well, so I was reading the charter. Sorry, trying to multitask here. The charter that is on the RCD website is the most recent one. It was amended in 2015. There's a lot of stuff on there that no longer applies. So I do think at some point we want to look at that in more detail and start over or kick it out, amend it, whatever. So I don't know if that fits on the agenda.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good suggestion, Carol. I mean, it's going to go out to everyone. So between now and January, everyone will have a chance to kind of peruse, read through it. And so, yes, we will definitely agendize it and solicit feedback based on everyone's review. And if there are, suggestions, recommendations that maybe things be tweaked or modified in some fashion, then we'll definitely take that up in January.
Yep, we're supposed to meet alternately in Hayfork and Weaverville.
Right.
Every quarterly. So
Yep.
some of that,
There are some legacy issues that I suspect need to be addressed.
That's true.
All right. Anything else? Anything else for us? The January agenda, you want to make sure you get on there. Not seeing anything. Again, just as always, if there are things that come up on your mind between now and then, Kelly and I are always open to getting that input. So don't hesitate to ship us an email or a text or something that with regard to January's agenda. Okay, with that, again, thank you very much for your patience and hanging in there with us. We did go over a little bit today, but very good discussion, very good participation. So thank you all for making that all happen. We are officially adjourned. Have a great weekend.
And happy holidays to everybody.
Yes, happy holidays.